Hello everyone and welcome to Merlin's Banner. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 1 to 6 player game Planet Unknown by Adam's Apple Games. This is a polyomino placement game, and if you checked out my video earlier in the week, you'll see that this is one of the games I recommend for the polyomino placement type game. It does that mechanic really well. But let's go ahead and see what else I think about this game. So I have this basically set up for a 2-player game, a little bit tighter than I normally would have it set up so we can get as much into the shot as we can here and close up so we can look at everything. And so you're going to have your planet here set up with all these different life pods on it. And so you collect these life pods and you'll put them on here with your rover and you'll get a point for those later on. So what you're going to do is, first thing that's going to happen if you're playing with event cards, which is optional way to play, is you're going to flip an event card. And there's green event cards, orange event cards, and red event cards. The green ones give you something good. The orange ones, a little okay, could be bad, could be not too bad. Red ones are usually something bad. And so you can kind of mix in together different combinations of numbers of green, orange, and red cards to make it harder or easier as far as the way the events are going to affect you. And so you'll flip that and you'll resolve it. This one says advance the rover or water track 1. So you could choose to advance the rover track, and then you can put a rover down. Of course, here you couldn't do that yet because I don't have anything down. You have to put it on the last tile that you placed. So I wouldn't be able to do that this round, so I'd probably just do the water track like that. And then you can then go in and take a tile and place it wherever you want. If you want to take the advantage of the blue terrain there, you're going to have to put it on some ice there, or else it won't actually advance. And so there you then advance 1 for the water because I have a water tile, and the energy tile right now is only next to a water tile. It's kind of a wild, and you can advance anything it's touching, but since it's only touching water, it'll advance the water. There's a synchrony thing here, so if I move to here, then I can choose any one of these tracks to move forward. Maybe now I will take advantage of that rover track. Before that, I actually should have put a meteorite on there, because if you see this symbol, you put a meteorite on, and then you can put your rover on the last tile you placed, and you can put it anywhere, including where that meteorite is. And so I'll do that and move that to the meteorite section. I get 1 point for every 3 meteorites I collect. It's also important to collect those meteorites because you won't score points for your rows and columns if there's a meteorite there. And how you score points for those is if you have this entire row here filled up, then you will score points as long as there's no meteorites in that row. And if you do the same thing with columns. If you see the ones near the middle that require the most will give you 3 points, and then it's kind of 2 points, 1 point as you go to the easier to fill up ones. And so you want to be trying to make sure you get those meteorites picked up along the way. And so that's basically how a turn goes. And then in 2-player mode, you would just kind of rotate that 1 more, and you have from these 2 to pick from. And so I might just go ahead and say pick this one right here, and I'm going to move out that direction right there. And then I get to take the green track and this. But of course, we would have done an event card before then, would have gained 1 biomass patch. So let's just say, in retrospect, I put it there. Okay, now let's do a real quick look at these. Here's an orange one where it says rovers cannot move onto tech terrain this round, which is that brown terrain there. And so I wouldn't be able to move my rover on that round onto there. So that'd be problematic if I was trying to move there. Here's a red one. You have to destroy 1 collected life pod. Well, right now we haven't collected any, but if we had, we'd have to take that off there and you wouldn't score that point at the end of the game. Here's another example of a bad one. Choose to gain a synergy boost or peek at the next event. Well, that's actually the one good red card that you get out of the deck, is that you are basically either able to peek at that next card or advance one of these. And then here we have regress any single tracker 3 times. When that comes up, you'd have to pick one of these. Maybe I'd pick this one because then when it advanced next, it would go right back onto a synergy. So sometimes you get a little bit of advantage there to going backwards, as you might be able to recollect something when you come forwards again. And so you're basically going to go through the game, doing an event card, and then picking one of the 2 tiles, advancing on the ones that you have gotten there. And as you move your rover along, let's say you moved your rover there and there because you were moved, let's say we're advanced further in the game here and we got to move it 2. You would go ahead and collect that life pod, put it on there, that's a point. And so you're going to be able to move around to collect life pods, move around to collect meteorites as they come out. You're going to be moving up on these different paths. If you move up here on the Civ track, where you'll get to look at all the Civ 1 cards, and you're going to have one extra than there are number of people for each of these. And then you get to pick one of these cards, and they have different benefits on them. Some of them give you medals, some of them let you advance a tracker, some of them give you better point scoring for meteorites. There's all kinds of different things that you're going to do. When you get to the level 2 cards, level 2 section, you're going to look at the level 2 cards. Level 3, you look at the level 3 ones. Level 4, so on and so forth. On the water track, you're mainly just going to get synergy bonuses and be able to get more points. Every time you pass one of these coins here, or medals, should I say, you will get that many points at the end of the game for the furthest up you are. So if you're all the way at the 10 here, you'll get 10 points. If you were right here, you get 7 points for the one that's right before it. And that's for every track, you'll add those points up. And so you want to be trying to advance tracks as much as you can for that reason, as well as for the benefits that you get along the way. On the green track, you will be getting not just you get synergy bonuses on, I think, all the tracks, different places. Yeah, you do. But you also, on the green track, will go ahead and get one of these biomasses and be able to put that on your boards. It fills in small spaces. Here on the rover track, you get to move your rover around every time you move up on one to the number that it says on there. When you get to this one that has a symbol of the rover again, you get to add a second rover to the last tile that you just placed. And you get more movement as you go up that track. Here on the tech track, at level 1, you'll have a benefit. On the universal one, is that you can place them anywhere that you want on the board. Normally, you have to place them adjacent to a tile you've already placed, but once you get here on the tech track, place it anywhere. Level 2, you may store biomasses on your board, and so you don't have to go ahead and use those immediately like you normally do. You can leave them there till the end of the game or any other time that you want to add them. When you get to level 3, each time you move the rover, you'll move it one extra time. So let's say I was back here at the 2 point. I could move the rover 2, plus another 1 is 3. And so you're going to get these different advantages as you go up here. And so those are really neat to be able to try and get those up. And so you're basically going to build out this planet, and you're going to increase these tracks. And then at the end of the game, you're going to score points for your meteorites, for your life pods, for your medals that you've passed or landed on here, for the amount of rows and columns you've filled in, as well as your Civ cards will sometimes have points, and you'll have these bonus cards that you're going to be kind of fighting with your neighbors to try and get the best on. If you win whatever it has to say, you'll get 5 points. If you tie, you'll get 2 points. And so that gives you that little bit kind of interaction between other players as far as trying to compete for those. And that is the basics of the gameplay. I haven't gone through every little detail, but it gives you a gist of how you are going to play the game and how you're going to win the game by getting the most points. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is that the box itself is a little bit too small for all the components to fit in properly. There's about 10 millimeters worth of lift after you've got everything in there. They should have made the box bigger. I really like the game trays that came with the game. It keeps everything in there nice and where it belongs. And so that's really cool. There is one qualm that I had with the game trays themselves, and it's just kind of the design of them, is that if you see in this one here, you've got all your starting pieces and you have your Civ cards. Now the starting pieces, you're not going to need those after you start the game, but the Civ cards, they're going to be part of your regular game. Whereas in here, you have you've got the meteorites and the greenery tiles here that you would have, you'll be using throughout the game. You have event cards that you're not going to be using during the game. It would have been nice if the Civ cards could have been along with those pieces so that you could just kind of set the tray out there and have everything you're going to be using in the game. It's not a big deal. I just thought it would have been a nice design change that could have been implemented. Now, as far as the components themselves go, I really like the components. We got some of these meteorites here. They look nice. You kind of put those on your board. They look cool on your board. The cards themselves, I would say they're good quality material. They're not the best quality, but they are good. You've got, of course, your standard. You expect kind of your cardboard tiles you're going to be placing to be just kind of like this. So you have a nice wooden commander token, which is going to be the person that's going to be selecting the tiles. And so you pass that around. There's also this little flux capacitor tile for one of the corporations. Over here we've got all the other things that you're going to have. You've got your rovers. I like the look of the rover there. You've got your life pods. And so these are going to be on your planet, and you're going to be able to put those on your board for points. You've got, I'm not going to take them all out, but you got these different plastic cubes. And they're different colors to go on each of your tracks. They are nice looking. Everything kind of looks nice, I believe. And so I like all the components. There has been some people that have had a little bit of qualms with the wash on the meteorites and the life pods and all of that. But I actually kind of like the way they look. It kind of gives it kind of a rugged look. It may not have been the way they initially wanted it to be. But I actually think it kind of gives that a little bit more thematicness to it. Although some people have said that they don't like the way that they kind of look dirty because of that. But hey, they're on different planets. They're going to be dirty. They're not going to be clean. They've been roving around and they've been landing in different places, and there's going to be dust and dirt. So I think it kind of fits thematically. Now, the next component I want to talk about is the Lazy Susan. And this is a really good design here because you can easily just kind of turn it for the next person to be able to pick from their different tiles. I like the design here. And also this Lazy Susan has this pops out and you can turn it, and that kind of makes it to where it's a little bit more randomized as to which ones are going to be lined up together. And so that was kind of a cool concept there. I like that very much. And the cardboard pieces themselves are what you would expect from a Polyomino placement game, a good solid strong cardboard there. I also want to mention the dual layer, or you might even say triple layer, because as you flip them over, you've got an extra layer on both sides, but each side is going to be dual layered. And I always like dual layer when you're going to have something that you're going to have to be keeping track of, because you don't want those to be kind of falling off of where they're supposed to be, and then you have to try and figure out where it was. And so these are really good quality boards. And on both sides, you've got a Universal Corporation, and you've got another corporation there on the other side. And so those are very good quality boards, and so that's good. You also get a score sheet in there. These are always handy to have so that you can easily keep track of your points at the end of the game instead of having to try and figure out what all you're adding up. You can just kind of go line by line and see what you're doing. And so it's great, and they included plenty of scorecards there. And so I appreciate that very much. This game has a lot of replayability, as I just mentioned. You've got different corporations. You've got 8 different corporations in addition to the normal standard corporation. And so it's great that you can branch out and have a different combination of both of corporations, as well as you've got your standard planets that everybody can play with as the same planet. And then on the opposite side of each one, you have a completely different planet. And so there's a dozen planets that you can play as in addition to your original starting planet. And so the combinations are great, that you can kind of combine different corporations with different planets and have a different kind of strategy each time is going to be changed up. And so that's going to add to the replayability a whole lot, as well as what we mentioned earlier about the fact that you can kind of change the combinations of the different tiles that you're going to be able to get out of the Lazy Susan. And so I estimate this game is going to have a lot of replayability. That it's not going to be one of those that you're going to get tired of really quick, because you can change it up in so many different ways. And each game, as well as you're going to have different events that are going to come up when you're using the event cards. You're going to have different Civ cards that you're going to be able to pick from whenever you're going on that Civ track. And so there's just going to be so many different elements of change within the game that this is going to keep me interested for a long time. Let's get into the gameplay itself. The gameplay is a rather simple kind of gameplay on the surface level. You basically are just grabbing a tile, and you are increasing on 2 different tracks based on the tile that you grabbed. And then if you're moving a rover, you're going to move that rover where you want to move it. And that's just about all there is to it as far as the surface level of getting into the game and playing it. So it's very easy to teach and learn, but there's so much strategy that goes into the game as to which tracks you want to try to advance on, as to which tiles you're going to try and get and try and fill in your board. Are you going to focus on filling in the rows a whole lot, or are you going to focus more on which one specifically you're going to get as far as the different tracks go? As well as the different corporations. Sometimes some of the corporations will motivate you to not fully fill in columns. And there's different kind of things that go along with that. And so there's so much different strategy that can be employed in this game. Which track are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on getting that tech track up so that you can use the bonuses from that? Are you going to focus on getting the water track up so that you're going to get more points because you can get 10 points if you get to the end of that track? Are you going to focus on the greenery track a little bit more so that you can get those little tiny pieces that you can put in there that's going to fill in those rows and columns at the last that you need? And all the time you're trying to focus on, okay, which rows am I going to fill in? Which columns are going to fill in? Which ones am I not going to worry about as much? Because you're not going to generally fill in your entire planet. You might get close in some games, but you're going to have to kind of balance that a little bit as to which ones you're going to go after and which ones you can fill in. You've got other tracks. You've got your rover track. You're going to be able to pick up those meteorites, because if you don't pick up the meteorites, you're not going to be able to score those points for rows and columns. Also, are you going to get the tiles that have the meteorites on them, or are you going to go after other tiles that don't have the meteorites on them? The meteorites give you points as you collect them with your rover, but they'll cost you points if you aren't able to get there and get them. And so there's so many different things that you can think about in here. The Civ track gives you different bonuses as you go along there, but you don't know what you're going to get until you get to that point in your Civ track and you turn it over and look at it. It may be a bonus that, with what you've been doing so far, isn't that great, or it may be an awesome bonus for you. And so which ones are you going to go after? You don't know what's going to happen. Events are going to come up. How's that going to change your strategy a little bit during the game? I love the gameplay. It's very simple yet clever and engaging, and you're going to have to be thinking constantly about what you're going to do. The whole idea of choosing which tiles you're going to have placed in front of you every few turns. That's an interesting mechanic. Of course, I also like the way that they do in the two-player mode, where you're just turning it once each time, because then at least you can kind of plan ahead each round what's going to be next. And so that also, in a way, also adds to replayability as far as from you play with people 3 and 4, 5, 6 players, you're going to play differently than the way you play in a 2-player game, where you know exactly what tiles you're going to be getting next round, versus in a 3, 4, 5, 6-player game, you don't know until you're going to choose which ones are going to be available. So you can't plan ahead, and so it changes your strategy a bit there from a 2-player game to a multiplayer, 3+ player game. And so it's all very interesting the way all this was put together, and I love the gameplay. Of course, I enjoy polyomino placement games as it is, and I think this is one of the best polyomino placement games out there, right alongside Isle of Cats. And so I highly recommend Planet Unknown if you enjoy polyomino placement games. If you haven't played very many, this is a fairly easy one to get into, as far as you're just grabbing a tile, putting it down, increasing the tracks. There's not a whole lot on the surface level to keep you from being able to get into this game, but of course there's that deeper strategy once you start playing and really kind of learn how to do it. The fact that you can start out with everybody having the same corporation and same planet is very easy for people that are wanting to just get into this game, to have all the same kind of things going on for the first game or two, and then you can branch out and learn more of how things work. I think that's a very clever way of doing that as well. One other thing I like about the gameplay is that it's synchronized, where you're all playing your actions at the same time. And so whether you're playing at a 2-player count or a 6-player count, it's going to be about the same length of game, because you're all taking your tile at the same time and then moving your tracks up at the same time, and then you just move on to the next round. And so that really works to keep the game going fresh and quick. You're not there sitting there waiting for somebody else to take their turn for a long time, and for 4 people in front of you to go, and then finally it's your turn. You are all doing it all at once, and then you're moving on to the next round. So I love how that keeps the game going, and you're not going to get bored there waiting for everybody else to take their turn. Overall, I give this game, I believe at this point, a 9.5. That's my initial valuation of the game out on a 10-point scale. It may go up to a 10-point. It may come down to a 9. I don't think it will that way, but I definitely think there's room for it to jump up to that 10-point as I get into more of the corporations, more of the different planets, and see how they all play. But right now, 9.5 is a solid score, and I highly recommend this game. Go check it out. I'll catch you in the next video.